Spotify, play my music, please. My music. My music. Oh, I hate you. Okay. Gonna force me to go off online just to play my songs. What a great intro song, guys. Okay. Hold on, how do I make sure I put in all the trigger warnings for Fran Bow real quick? No, I don't want the twins. Ow! What the fuck was even like the just the ones that Fran Bow told me about when I started the game. Hold on. Mushroom. Okay. What? Fuck off, Etsy. Ah, what did I do? I love when Windows gives me an error sound but doesn't tell me what the error sound was for. Explicit violence for what? How do I like pin? Aha, I can pin a message. Huzzah. Manually unpinned or end of stream. Let's go end of stream. Unpin after. Okay. I can hide this for me. There we go. Because yeah, this game's freaking crazy. Thanks, Allium Duo updates on Twitter to tell me what I should put on this. Anyway. I might just let you. What the fuck? Oh my god, it's not gonna play any of my music? They hate me. I have to go online to play my music. What the fuck is the point from downloading it then? Huh? Hmm? Dear, I feel we're facing a problem. You love me no longer. I'll wait till the end of this song and then we're gonna Fran Bow it up. Because while we do that, I'm actually gonna install some more Stardew mods. I know I need more Stardew mods like a hole in the head, but, consider I want to. Like, I found one that adds like a birthday. So you can have a birthday. Pretend that you love me. I'm not looking forward to the summer because the second that it gets too hot in my room, it's gonna be like unbearable to stream. Not because it's like physically uncomfortable, but because it's the second I turn on my loud ass fan, everyone is gonna be hearing that shit. I have desperately pondered, but awake and I wonder, done in another way to make you stay. Okay, cool. I also added a to-do list thing, so hopefully I won't forget to do things. Just put everything on the to-do list that I wanted to do. So just in case, because here's my thing also, I can't get back into like, what is this? Oh, it's my Fran Bow stream. I was like, what is this? It's my old one, I downloaded it. Pretend that you love me. Just say that you'll leave me. So I cry. And I beg for. Every time I change the volume on this thing, it freaks the fuck out. About anything but you. Say that you love me. It's funny if I minimize this window. There I go. Gone. Oh, as much as I fucking love Law Evading Rock, we gotta start the game. The game. Oh. Oh, Law Evading Rock. Okay, anyway. Fran Bow time. Fran Bow time. You know, fun fact, I had an imaginary friend that was like visually inspired by Fran. But I called her Elizabeth and she could turn invisible. There's some brew lore for you. Or maybe I should have let the music continue playing because this is why are you taking so long to open? Steam! I was literally playing Stardew Valley earlier. You cannot act like you're like, what? You're asking me to do things? Like, yeah, Steam, it's your job. Yeah. I love getting 5 million error messages. Like, shut the fuck up. I'm just messing with my thing. Let's say it like that. Okay, well, what do you mean it's not responding? I was just pressing buttons. Fran Bow, I didn't mean to bug the whole game. I was just pressing buttons. Please don't be broken. Uh-oh. Please don't be broken. That would suck. Come on. Load. Okay, there it goes. Okay, now hold on. Let's not be scuffed. Let me actually do a thing for once where it doesn't do that and I just do this. And then I open the game and then I skip past this stuff. How do I save me? How do I skip? Okay. Oh, here's the warning again. Just in case y'all needed it, but I also pinned it just to be safe. Oh my lord. Forgot how loud this game is. Hello. Oh, wait, no. I meant continue. Okay, game time. Let's go. Ah, Mr. Midnight, I love you. Hello, Mr. Stag Beetle. No, you can't get in. It's closed. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, it's closed? I didn't know. What's the end of this passage? Well, the library, of course, but it's closed. Come back in fall or winter, then it'll be open. Hey, aren't you the talking tree I took to see Pelantris? They asked me. Yes, it's me. Pelantris gave me arms and legs. Yes, and also a head. It's very positive. Yes. Well, why is the library closed, sir? Well, it's logical. As the sun goes around the second moon of a thirst, it'll be open. Only then will the real knowledge be learned, and that only happens in fall and winter. Thank you, I guess. Well, thank you for the information, sir. Bye. She's so nice and kind, and no one deserves it. I can look out the window. I see many clouds. Wow, this is a bit scary, but it's so beautiful. Pinwheel. She doesn't even know it's called a pinwheel. Or maybe that's what they're called in another region. I actually have no idea. Hello, kind sir. Hello, sir. Are you a guard? Yes. Oh, I see. Do you know where Mount Coatram is? Yes. Can you tell me where it is? Yes. Would you? Well, tell me, please. Mount Coatram is only in wintertime. Okay. I think I remember this. What are you talking about? Of course, wintertime. What do you think? Okay. I see. Bye. I know this. I know this. I remember this. I actually, I think I remember skipping the most of the first half of the game because it scared me when I watched playthroughs. So, most of... Ooh, this is a very big tree. I'm assuming that's Mount... Oh, no, so where I was just at. Elantris' home. Mountain. That might be Mount Coatram. A boat? The ocean all around. Right, I can't read. But, okay, library thing this way. Cart ocean this way. Mountain ocean that way. Wow, he's forging. Hello. Greetings, are you interested in fabric and thread? I have some. Out of curiosity, miss, for what purpose do you use fabric? Everybody's naked. Well, whatever you need it for. We also have thread for making other things. I see. I have to go, miss. Have a nice day. Bye. Hello. Ah, who's there? Who? Me. Fran. Can you see me? Oh, now I see. A little. You have 4 eyes. Wow. What are you selling? What are you selling? One of the very best plubbers of the entire land. You want to smell it? I don't like coconuts. It's poo, miss. Poo that I collect. They're not coconuts. Poo in the toilet? Wow, I thought it was really bad to eat poo. Bad? Why? It's very yummy. We love it here. It makes everything grow and shine. I have to get going now. Good luck with the plobas. Bye. Hello, I'm Fran. What are you doing? Good day. I'm Bruter, and I'm molding this piece of iron. For what? I have to deliver a few clock pieces to the clockmaker. You make all kinds. Oh, I see. So you can make all kinds of metallic stuff. Sure. If you have some ideas, we can talk about them. And padam! I'll do it. That's very good to know. Thank you, sir. Well, I have to keep working, but if you need my services, you know where I am. Maybe I can deliver it to the clockmaker, because I think the clockmaker is what gives me the thing. Oh, look, it's him right here. Hello, what are you doing? Working on my clock. Oh, I see. Sir, do you know where I can find the Great Wizard? No, miss, I make clocks, I fix clocks, I listen to clocks. TikTok. And do you know where Mount Coatram is? Mount Coatram only exists in wintertime. Otherwise, it's just a regular mountain. I can't wait for winter. The king said that the wizard would be on Mount Coatram. You don't need to wait for winter to come. That's absurd. Time is an infinitely layered reality. See? That's what I'm fucking saying. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Anyway, what do? A layered reality? That sounds great. What should I do then? Go to the big clock and change the season. Just change it. Oh, where? Well, go towards the castle, but turn left when you see the stairs. You'll find a big clock on the tree. Good luck. Okay. I see. I'm perceiving. Go this way. Aha! Very odd clock. Where are the numbers? Oh, it sounds like something broke. Okay, can I ask the clockmaker how to fix it? Oh. Cool. This way. Hello. I want to talk to the grasshopper guy. Hello. Good day, living creature. All good. What you doing? Yes, I'm fine. What are you doing? I'm spilling this flower. Beautiful creation. Are you waiting for somebody? I'm waiting for the lemons to grow. Do you like lemons? They're a bit sour for my taste, but lemonade is yummy. Lemonade is what I'll do with the lemons for the customers at the bar, you know? We put some other stuff inside too, so we can fly. Fly? Wow, I'd like to try that. Sounds great. Yeah, that's why I wait. You can't rush it. Hey, the bar opens in fall, and a very awesome dancer will perform. You should come and hang out. How old do you think this girl is? Oh no. Oh no. I don't know if I like the sound of this. Maybe I will. It sounds fun. Thank you. Bye. And this way to the mountain. What the heck is this? I can't read. Hi. Okay, well, let me go talk to the clockmaker because it broke. Sir, I have a little problem. Yes, I don't have any. The clock is broken. Big clock on the tree, it's broken. I can't make it work. Please help me. A broken clock? What a disgrace. Poor clock. You have to help me. Please fix it for me. I beg you, I have to go home. I never fix a clock for nothing. Otherwise, my lifetime goes to waste. What do you mean? I charge 1 big gold coin per clock. Time is gold, you know. I don't have any coins. No clock will ever be fixed. How get coins? How get? Look, there's a great snail there's a snail who loves to give gold away. Talk to him. Okay. This is an ant, not a snail, but... Hello, lady. Is there any news? Good day. Would you like to read the newspaper? I can't read. What's a Thirst's language called? Don't you know? It's called Thurnish. You're a tourist. Yes, I am. Yes, I'm a tourist. My name is Fran. I've never seen a tourist before, and I've never seen a Fran either. Welcome to a Thursday. I hope you have fun here. Thank you so much. I have to go now. Bye. Okay, well, let's go this way. Where's the snail? Snail! Hello! Good day, young one. What you doing? A war is about to start, and I can't see any meaning in the meaningless. Fuck? Okay. Huh? What do you mean? Join me, young one. You'll be rewarded with 1 gold coin if you come back alive. Oh, he's talking about, like, chess. Join you where? The game is about to begin. You are the Kamalas, I am the Valokas. Black and white, has shadows and light. Is it sort of board game, sir? Yeah, it's a board game. Let us immerse ourselves in this adventure. You against me. I'll give you a coin if you win, eh? What do you say? What are the rules? First to place 3 of the same figures in a diagonal horizontal of... Oh, it's tic-tac-toe. Bro. We toss the machinery and see who begins. Are you in? Tic-tac-toe? Sure, it sounds like a game we used to play at school called tic-tac-toe. But why would you just give me the gold if I win? Time is gold and I'm very old. I've been around for a long time. I just want to have a good time. So true, bro. I see. Well, let's play. I win. Do I just keep getting gold coins? Oh, that was very clever. Good for you. Yes, I'm good at this. Thank you for the coin, sir. It's very shiny. Bye. Okay, I only get 1. I see. That's fine. Okay, now I have a coin. Here, sir, your gold coin. What's that? I haven't fixed any of your clocks. Oh, but I thought you wanted a coin to fix the clock. Oh, yes, but you have to offer me the job first, alright? Do it and be polite. Oh, sir, clockmaker, would you like to fix my clock? In exchange for this piece of gold and in the name of, time? I beg of you, accept my offer. Of course, that was an incredible job offer. Very passionate. Yes, so good at job offers. Great, let's go to the big clock and fix it. Not what I was expecting, but really should be expecting the unexpected at this point. You were right, the clock is broken. You can fix it, right? Of course, just a second. I mean, it's like literally his life's passion. Whoa, whoa. Oh, whoa. Yes, What the heck was that? Oh, there. What is it? You think somebody was playing a dirty game around this clock? What do you mean? And somebody broke it. It's immoral breaking it. It's immoral, not immortal. I can't read. Breaking a defenseless clock? Ugh. Why would somebody break it? Kamala's winter. Mount Coachram, the stones. Many reasons, miss. Oh. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Kamala's the evil darkness they work for. Oh. Oh. I see the only evil we have around here. Oh. Remember, wants the stones. Is he collecting the infinity stones or what? Okay. For what purpose? Those stones are meaningless to him in his kingdom, and the stones are in winter time. Remember a giant black monster with a goat mask? A dead goat mask? Yes, you know him? Yes. I think it's because of him I'm in this land. I'm a human, you know. Oh, a human. Now I understand. I also need the stones. On my way back home. I hope it's not too late. Aha! That is why I need to go in the wintertime and go to Mount Coachram. Yes, exactly. That's what I just said. I have to talk to the Great Wizard and borrow the stones. Well, it's fixed now. I'll give you something that'll make it easy for you. Here. See, I remembered this. I know. It's a remote control for the clock. You'll be able to travel into all 4 seasons with just a quick turn. But it's just a prototype, so it may not work if you're too far away. Remember, time is an infinite layered reality, so be careful. I'll be careful. Thank you very much. You're a very nice clockmaker guy. Please, call me Cogwind. Alright, Mr. Cogwind. I'm Fran, by the way. See you soon, bye. Kitty. Okay. Yeah, see, that's scary. They're not here anymore. You can go even higher, apparently. Hello, Great Wizard. Oh, are you the Great Wizard, sir? Sorry, sir. I'm Fran and I need your help. Is this Mount Coachram? Excuse me, can you talk? You have many questions. That's good. Oh, sorry, sir. The king says you could help me. What the king says we do. I need to borrow. I need you to lend me the stones to open a door to my world. The stones are missing, and I don't remember where they are. Bro, what? Also, when does Itward come back? I miss my guy. Every time they seek, I hide. Every time I hide, I forget, so they can't be found. They? You mean the Black Shadows, sir? I just want to know the biggest answer of them all. How does the rabbit do it? I saw it once. A human did it. The rabbit came from it. All the mythical things of a Thursday, and bro is stumped by a human magic trick. Oh my goodness gracious. Anyway. How? This is the greatest question of them all. Because if nothing exists, then nothing exists. But if the nothing exists, then there is no nothing. I ask again, how? Sir, why don't you ask the person who did it? Oh, I have a visitor. Good day, what brings you to the Great Wizard? That means me, just so you know. Bro forgot we were here. Okay. Alright. Good day, sir. The king sent me here for the stones. The stones! Ah, it's been a long time since anyone came around looking for them. We're the most fantastic spell of all time, so nobody could find them. You know, the Black Shadows. The Kamals? Kamals? I don't know. I keep trying to pronounce it like koalas in my head, but that's not. They try to steal them all the time, so I have to be sure. The king told me that the stones would open the door to go home. The stones are hiding. I can remember the 4 riddles that are connected to the stones. 4 riddles that will unlock my memory. Only when all 4 riddles are answered correctly will I be able to tell you where to find the 5 items. These items are the stones in a layered reality. Then the only one who can bring them back is me. Okay, tell me the riddles. There's no time to lose. Let me show you. Bro, what? What? This is the star of the star. This is the star of a thirster, the greatest guide of the sky, the greatest caretaker of this land. And what do I have to do, sir? What are the riddles? I'll give you the 4 riddles written down in the language of everything. The answer is always one item. Place the items on the star of a thirster, on the respective symbols, and after that I'll be able to tell you where the stones are. Shiny as a sound, but I'll never burn you. Perhaps not. Oh. Okay, so this has got to be like metal or like a sword. This is probably a lemon. Light and hollow. Bones? Maybe? Oh, thank you very much, Sir Wizard. No, Sir Wizard, the king told me that you could make me human again. Did he? I think that's true. I barely remember how to do it, though. Bro. Remember, but I can't go home as a tree. I understand, but I can't help you right now. I've recovered some of my knowledge. Perhaps we could try to make you human again after you find the first stone. Oh, that would be incredible. Yes, incredible and great. Bring me your clothes and we'll see how it goes. Alright, sir, I'll bring you my clothes later. Bro, this shit is so ass. Okay, but I'm rather certain that the first one... Do you want to look at this? This sounds like the sword that the guy was working on, you know? Or like the metal. And then, shiny as a sound, but I'll never burn you. Perhaps a sour smile, I'll get you. Sour smile makes me think of the lemons. Cold-blooded sun could be a frog. Or like any sort of like cold-blooded animal. It could be a feather, or it could be bones. Can I walk on this? Guess not. Sir, can I have one of your lemons? Means every lemon on the tree. Ah, but he takes them to here, and he said I could come and visit. Good day, little lady. Can you show me your ticket, please? How do I get one? I'm not a citizen, bro. Not a citizen? That's a new one. Too new for me, though. Sorry, little lady. I can't let you in. Alright, sir, I understand, but what can I do then? I would really like to go inside. Well, I don't know. This never happened before. Okay, so what I think I'll do, I'll talk to this guy about getting a ticket. Would you like to wait with me? Oh, I can't. I have to go home. Very nice thought. Oh, okay. What? How do I get a ticket? Ooh, boat. We can get in the boat. No way. Wow, the island is very tiny. Oh, hey, look, I can go get my clothes. I fixed the bridge. Get your purse. Wow, Kitty, you're very clever. I hope we find my things. Kitty, I can't find my pills. Maybe the pills aren't here, maybe you lost them. Well, they weren't doing me any good anyways. Maybe they'll reappear someday. Let's get going now. Alright, back across the river we go. Yeah, good thing we can't change seasons while we're over there, otherwise we get stuck. Now, I wonder... almost invisible ones. I'm gonna see if there's anything I could possibly do with it. But guess not. Okay, still can't get in there. Hello, I'm Fran. What are you doing? Good day, I'm Pooter, and I'm molding this piece of iron. For what? Okay, right. We saw this before. Okay, I think we have to talk. I have to go to the library, I think. Because while I'm putting this together, Fran might not be thinking of this, and I have to think like Fran here. So I think, if I remember correct, he said that the library opened in fall. Oh no, what password? Oh my god. Now we gotta go see the wizard. He can be like, oh, I don't know. Bro. This is bullshit. Dude, like, no one's here. Except for him, for some reason. And those guys. Hello. Seen flying boats, sir. How do they work? Think about them floating on water, but instead of water, it's air. It's so simple. Can I borrow one of your boats to fly away? I want to go home. Aww. Hello, little Rude. You're so cute. Oh, thank you. You're cute too. I'm Fran, and you are? Me? No, I'm not Fran. I'm Zelma, and I want to sing all day long. What's your favorite song? My favorite song goes like this. 1 and 1 are 2. 1 and 2 are 3. 2 and 3 are 5. And 3 and 5 are 8. I don't remember anything more than that. I learned that at school. It's fun. Oh, that sounds very mathematical. I have to go now. You have beautiful fruits, by the way. See you. Aw, she's just so freaking sweet. Oh my god, I have ads. My bad, guys. Oh my god. Anyway, I gotta go talk to stupid ass wizard who don't know nothing. It's fine. What? Oh, kid, did you see that? Did you? What was it? I think it's the shadows. Oh dear, I don't want to see them again. Yes, Kitty. They're all over the place in the hospital. I want to go home. Oh, Kitty, make me a promise. Whatever happens, you and I will always be on the same side. Shut the fuck up. Bro, not during the ad break. Oh, no. Oh. Of course, my dear, I promise. Great, now I have to keep going. Oh, Mr. Great Wizard. I need the library password. I need the library password. It's a That's the Great Wizard. He don't know nothing. Wait, where the fuck am I? What with the fairies in my books? Here's the feelings, the light of all material we are Velokas. Oh, you're very shiny and you make me feel so happy, so very happy. Look, creature. One of the young Velokas is going to receive the shield. Oh, we've seen this guy before. Soldier of the sun, creature from the soil, fruit from the seed. Let the universe illuminate you with the truth and be free. Huh? Where are you all going? We continue our paths to life. May freedom be with you, my friend. Sir? Or miss? Can you do magical things? The universe is already doing magic all the time. You're full of magic yourself. But I want to know things, and it's odd. I feel like you know everything. We are the light. We are everywhere. What answers are you looking for? I want to know who killed my parents, and why that big monster is hunting me. The truth will come to those who seek. Your path towards truth is immense. You are living in a world that turns its back on you. Damn! You're too fragile to face the truth just now, and too strong to let it go. Aw. But don't be sad, dear. We have to keep going. Yes, Kitty, you're right. Okay, so what is... Velokas is not real, though. Assuming there's like another season in which this would become relevant, but maybe not. What do I want out of this? And 6 fingers. Wonder how much of a kick Ford would get out of this. How am I supposed to like... No! Pelantris! Wait, don't go! Oh no, he looked really bad, Kitty. Wasn't that the doctor? Maybe he can cure himself. I hope so, Kitty. He was so hurt that he lost his feather. I wonder what happened. Oh, I bet. I think that's it. And the pen of men. It's a feather, it's a feather. Okay, okay. I feel bad. Poor guy. Who knows the library password? Maybe I can ask the king. Hold on. Ah, fish. Mr. Guard, do you know the library password? Damn. I go look at the flowers? Yay. Why is it taking so long to load? Okay. Don't scare me. I just hope Pelancius is okay. Damn, he's gone. Like, can't ask him nothing. Ugh. Okay, I think I have one of the things. So if I give that to him, I can get a head start. You know, get the ball rolling. Cause, yeah, that's still the same. Pen of Man. So 4 would be there. Oh, here. I already found one. I found one. Aren't you supposed to help me once I got one? Ugh. What if I... this? Hello? I have a crayon. Oh, wait. What if... it's matches, maybe? I have an idea, I have an idea. I have an idea! And look at it, 1. Can I place anything there? Or can I only place what's correct? See, I'm so freaking smart. Look. No, I've done things. I thought he was supposed to give me a hint. Once I got... man, okay. Bro. Okay, well maybe putting those there has done something. These may be burning hard. Then the next thing, flow, flow, cold-blooded sun. Maybe I can ask around. Why not? Just ask. Bro. What more can I do? Should I ask the snail because the snail is old? Beautiful fruits. Thank you, dear. Would you like some? Oh, no, I'm on a mission to return home. I want to be hungry when I get there. Oh, so what part of Earth are you from? Is it outside the island? No, I'm not from Earth at all. I'm a human. Oh, a human. That's new. Well, I hope you complete your mission. Thank you, miss. I certainly will. See you. Hello, Zelma. Or maybe it's this. Maybe it could be a coin. But that's why I was thinking it could be a lemon because it says sour smile. Like, how do I get wink wink nudge nudged in the right direction here without spoiling it for myself? Huh. Yeah, what do you think, Kitty? Kitty, help me out. Riddles 3 and 4. Okay, wait. I already did... Let's see, riddle 3? Yeah. Oh, fish. Okay. So, hold on. I did this one. And this one, but I didn't do 2. So let's see if I can ask him about 2. Up with the riddles! 2. So I do have to get- oh, you know what? You know what? Wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait. Wait, first of all, fish. Something I could, like, catch them with? Like the Beauty and the Beast all at once? How do I catch the fish? Am I supposed to give him my clothes? I'm supposed to give him my clothes, aren't I? The wizard? Okay. So first of all, let me try giving him this. Come on. Can't we lie a little bit? Ugh, anyway. Clothes. I can't make you human yet. I solved the first riddle already. Ugh. Okay. How do I get the fish? So break it. Kitty, help me catch fish. Kitty, help me catch fish. Kitty, how catch fish? If this should be a fish. How do I get a fish? I need a fishing rod? Can I make a fishing rod? Buttons. I need a stick. Can I borrow a piece of wood? I'm too smart for this game. And also too stupid. What? How get fish? Bro. What chapter am I on? Hold on. Supposed to break the basket, okay? So I'll only take as many as the basket can hold. Okay, okay. I see. Some things act natural. Wait, that's crazy. I would have never thought of that. Aha! Now I have a lemon. How the frick do I get a fish? Oh, whoa, hey, what? Where'd it go? Where'd the Velocas go? Okay. Now see, now the boat's broken. Hey look, that guy has a fishing rod. I'll get rod. Wait. Oh my god, literally right here in front of my face. How's it broken? Oh, because it doesn't have a... Okay, we need new lines. We go talk to the person who does this, the thread. The thread. Go, go, go. What the shit? Leave her alone! Oh no. Oh. Leave that little guy alone. Oh. No, bro. Oh, I can't do this. Oh. There's nothing to be afraid of. You have to come closer, friend. Oh, no, 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 no. You can't be my mother. She's dead. You have to come closer now. No, you're not my mommy. Leave me alone. Oh, this poor baby. Leave her alone. Fuck this guy. Yeah, screw off, man. Oh. Do I have to show her the shop? Hello, miss. I wonder if you have some thread for fishing line, do you? Fishing line thread? Yes, yes, I have some. Do you want some? Yes, please. Cut a lot. Oh, I meant price-wise. What do you have for a fishing line? You see, I've never sold anything before. But you know what? You can have it. I hope it makes you happy. Thanks. Oh, wow. Thank you, miss. I hope you can come up with some prices and sell something soon. Bye. Okay. Is that done? Or do I need a hook? According to this, I need to talk to this guy. If it's broken, can you help me? In the hook that goes with this rod. Oh, okay. Well, let's forget about it. Can you please make me a hook for this fishing rod? 1 coin. The whole thing will cost you 3 coins. Okay. What? That doesn't make any sense. But fine. I would like to play. Yes, let's do it. Because I have a gold coin now, so I need 3. Every time that I go second, I win. Oh, he's getting smarter. What is this? Never mind, he's dumb. Oh wow, I won against him 5 times. I'm the bomb. Oh, it was very clever. Good for you. Okay. Now we should have enough for sure. How many do I have? I have 4. Psh, more than enough. Let's go. Oh, I'm trying to talk to him. I have coins. Ugh, okay, that I have to physically give him the coins. Here's your hook. Oh, huzzah. Okay. Good thing I looked that up. I would have been stuck here for freaking ever. Because I'm unobservant as hell, apparently. Fish. You caught a fish! I got that motherfucking fish. Let's go. Alright, up we go. Okay. So, that there, and this here. I did it. I smell victory. I smell delicious victory. Congratulations. Thank you, sir. I'm ready. Let's bring the stones back. Hee hee. Yes, we'll start with a fire. Cartram has awakened. Cartram is alive. On top of the mountain, he will be waiting for you. Here's my lovely wizard hat. Bring it to me. Ah, your hat? Yes, the stones are hiding in my wizard's tool. That's why I can't remember a thing. But now I'm remembering. Go to the top of the mountain and find Cartram. Okay. Guess I gotta go get the hat. Hello? Oh my gosh. It's alive. Ah, who dares wake me? Who? Oh my goodness, you're alive. I'm sorry to bother you, sir. I'm Fran. Fran? I see. I don't know what that means. This is just my name? Well, I don't really know what it means. It's just my name. Oh, alright. Mine is Cartram. You want to know why? Sure, tell me. Culture means born in heaven. I used to be a star. Wow. Because I was born in space. It's very logical. Oh wow, I've never met a star in person. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, friend. So, what brings you here? The Great Wizard needs his hat. The Great Wizard told me to get the hat, so if you don't mind. I can't do that. I'm divorced. What? What do you mean divorced? I just need the hat, sir. It's very important. I can't. If I give you the hat, the entire land will suffer. I have to find another way to get home. The king told me that there's no other way. Please help me. I told you I can't. My wife left me. She was the one covering my top. I took off the hat. My magma could erupt and kill everyone, including you. What happened? I don't want that. What happened with your wife? She just decided that it was time for her to start with her own island. So, she broke up with me. I didn't get the chance to ask her why. I miss her so much. Aww. Well, where's your wife now? On the water. Oh, okay. Okay, I know where that is. I know that is. Only she comes back. Otherwise, you know what could happen. Can I put something else on top of your head, sir? Like a rock or something? No, I like this hat. Okay, I'll be right back. Got this. Oh, he's only awake in winter. It's nice and all, but oh, god damn it. Ugh, leave me alone. No. Screw off. I'm many new friends to play with. I don't want you as my mommy. You look very scary and I don't like you. You tell him, Fran. Fran, who are you talking to? Huh? The woman standing... it's nothing, kitty. Oh, she's just a little guy and they keep tormenting her. For why? Let's get it, kitty. Let's go. Aha! Hello, miss? Wake up, I have a message for you. Oh, hello. A messenger? What a good day. Messenger of love! Of love! Love? Oh, but you're not pink. Pink? No, I'm the brown and green love messenger. Does the messenger of love have something to share? Yes, of course. I'm here in the name of love to bring you back to your husband. No. He made me very sad. Nobody has the right to make me sad. Why? Well, maybe he didn't mean to hurt you. What did he do? He was so hot, and I fell in love with that. But lately he's been cold and boring, so I felt neglected. I cried so many times. He used to grow a beautiful red flower just for me, to show his love for me. But this year, nothing came up. And you know what? I'm the one protecting him all the time, so I want some credit for that, that's all. But miss, if I find that flower for you, would you come back? I guess, but I have no hope. Besides, I'm the ruler of my own island now. I'll go see if I find the red flower. Do you know where it grows? Always at the bottom. It's very different from all the flowers. My husband's bottom, of course. Okay. I got this. Kitty does not like the boat. You see how his eyes are super freaking, like, dilated? He's like, I hate this boat. Oh, I hate the boat. Maybe I can ask him about this flower. Okay, cannot ask him about the flower. Oh, there's the Veloca again. Red flower. At the bottom. I'm seeing a lot of things, but a red flower is not one of them. Oh, is it this thing? This thing that I kept missing? Oh my god, it's right in front of my freaking face. Okay, flower. Okay. Now I go. I'll move. Bada bing, bada boom. We would have been stuck there for ages, just... Where the flower at? Miss, I found it! Look, the red flower! Oh, thank you so much. It looks so beautiful. You're indeed a great messenger of love. Thank you, miss. We should go back to your husband right away. He really misses you. I'll see you there in winter time. What? Sure. Like, you know what? Might as well happen. It goes on and on and on. On and on. Very nice to see you two together. Now, I'd like to have the hat, please. Thank you so much. I'll never forget what you've done for us. Come on, my darling, come up on top. And here's the hat. Thank you again. Aww. Ah, thank you, sir. I have to go give the hat to the Great Wizard now. Bye. Dr. Love. I just got an achievement called Dr. Love because Coach is no longer divorced. Alright. I'm bringing to you the hat. Here's your hat, sir. Oh, my hat! I feel the knowledge throwing through my body. I'm so happy. That's great, sir. What next? The fruit? Ooh, really? It is incredible. Yes, the fruit is talking to me now. It says the book. My book of knowledge. It's in the library, but beware. The book may be hiding, so you must be persistent and patient. Good, sir. I'll go to the library then. Wait. There's a password you need to get inside. Let me think. Think. It must be something about how we learn, or... Ah! I remember what the password is. Your basic senses are easily manipulated. Shut them down before learning. I'll try to remember that. What does that mean? That means we often let our understanding be manipulated. We should always try to use our common sense. Nobody should ever tell you what to think or believe. Be hungry for knowledge and you'll find yourself in constant evolution. This will let you be free to cherish every second of your life. Oh, I think it's very fun to think and learn, and being curious helps a lot. I'm at a library now to find your book. This game. It's so much talking. Alright. I wish I could teleport. Like, I gotta... Born a cold... What the fuck was that? I just saw something. I freaking swear, bro. Swear on my Yeezys, I just saw something. Okay. Oh, god damn it. She didn't do nothing. Nutty little girl. Nutty girl's supposed to be punished. Fuck you. Do as I say. Do as I do, friend. Jump. Fuck you. Oh, my dear. Don't listen to those evil things. You're strong. Get them out of your head, my dear. My crazy kitty, tell me. No, my dear. You just have to be strong. Don't let them play with your head. Oh, my kitty. I feel completely broken. My chest hurts. Oh, my dear. I'm here for you. Don't cry. She's just 10, bro. Oh, my god. I love you too, my dear. We should keep going. Let's go to the library. bro. I do. I remember the words or something like your eyes and ears are limited to something that will further learning. Good, why is that? The only thing we can really see is like the city. You can come inside, have fun. Yes! Let's fucking go! Okay, so it's hiding from me. Ooh, wait. I have a book. See, so many books. Hello, what are you reading? A book with many letters. Sometimes I think letters look very scary. Maybe you should read something with a lot of pictures instead. Oh yes, some other damn idea. Now if you don't mind. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Hello sir, what are you doing? Ah, I'm looking for my special book. Why stand on a ladder? You have wings. Ah, because this ladder was made to be used, of course. What if I need to use it? Then you should wait your turn. What if it's an emergency and I can't wait that long? Ah, I can just go ahead. Oh, hello. Why aren't you reading? Oh, because I need to find a special book first. Ah, special books are very nice. The one I'm reading is also very special. Oh, that's great. Even in the winter, that guy is still up there. Oh. Counting. One plus one is two. And then I need to get up to... Okay, wait, let me write this down. On. Wait a minute. I'm writing this on my asthma diagnosis. Or, what is this actually? Oh, no, it's my paper from the dermatologist. So, okay. So the symbol is like this. I can remember what number this is. Okay. So it's like this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 20 and then 1, so equals 21. It's kind of like Roman numerals. Okay. That's 21. What does it mean? What does it mean? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 20. 2, 1 and 2 are 3. 2 and 3 are 5. Fuck is 5? 5 is E. 3 and 5 are 8. 7, 8, 9, and then 10. Okay. 8. 5 plus 8 is 13. What would 13 even look like? Would be like one like this. Ha ha ha! So freaking smart. Ah! Hello, Edward. How reach? No, I'm gonna talk to this guy. Can I get up on these books? Nope. Okay. Just like reach. Damn. Like stand on your tiptoes, girl. I don't know. Okay. Let's think. Before I look it up. Things we can stand on? Things we can use to reach? Also, like, what's with all the it word iconography, I guess? Wait. Ha! So freaking smart. Get up on the ladder first. There we go. Oh, it's staring at me. Ew. How do I... Oh. I just accidentally clicked out of the game. Save me. Damn, my bad, that was loud. I had to sneeze though. Alright. I have your book. You keep pacing. Sir, here's your book. It was inside the music box. I saw the doll. Hehe. The word lock. That sounds like fun. Thank you for this book. This certainly makes me remember many things. Many, many things. And now what? There's 2 things left on the star. Yes, fish in the water. Fish, fish swimming free. Go back, little fish. Go back home. Wow, sir, you woke up the fish. Yes, because I remembered how to do it. Isn't it beautiful? It's magical, sir. Sir, can you do other beings like humans? Of course, but only if the circumstances are positive. The circumstances are often not positive. I see, sir. So we need to find the missing stones, yes? The fish told me that my shoes are on the amazing dancer's feet. You know who this dancer could be. I have no idea. I think I know. I'll go see. How am I supposed to get a ticket? What? Okay, how do I get in here? Ticket. I'm like. I mean, like, I know this thing is here, but what can I do with it? There's a hole. Oh! Ooh. I can actually do that? What? Ah, the dancer. Ticket. Damn, they dance all the way into the fall? Oh my god. Keep going though. I should take it, yes. I have the ticket, I have it. Incredible, kitty. Alright. So as soon as the ticket found its way into my hands. This can't be right, I just can't. What? What if I copy this one? No way. Oh, I see, but you simply do it yourself. Well, oh, no, that's what I was trying to do the entire time, and the game wouldn't let me. I thought it was the right thing to do. I wasn't invited, so I invited myself. Very clever, little lady. Well, I guess I could let you in. Enjoy the show. Thank you, sir. Kind thief. Hello, I like your shoes. Hello, dancer, sir. I really need your shoes. Shoes belong to the dancer. I'm a dancer, and I need them to dance with the wizard. Oh, I'm sorry. What did you just say? I want your shoes. A little lemonade. You seem tense. I don't want lemonade. I want lemonade. Where'd you get your shoes from? At least to quench your thirst. Sir, let me explain. I need your shoes. The great wizard needs them. Oh, that's impossible. I can't give you my shoes. Standing on them, so it's impossible. But if you raise your feet, I could take them. Okay, well, hold up. What can I do? I wonder if I can get them to like play faster. Not really. What's the trumpet player doing, sir? Ah, he's fixing the piano. The tune must be perfect for we start the show. What if I fuck up the piano? Oh, but if I want orange. Ha! Ha 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 ha! Oh my god, look at how fast they're playing. Oh my god. I have the shoes, I'm so clever. Oh my god, he could have gotten hurt. That's cool, it's fine. He's fine. I got the shoes. At what cost? Whoa, you did it! You really have an extraordinary machine inside your head. Thank you, sir. Let's do the last one so I can go home. What did he need the shoes for again? The last one. Air. I recognize this feather. Belongs to Belantris. Yes, I saw him badly injured. He'll be fine. He has a pink water. That fixes everything. Yes, that's true. Well, what do we do with the feather? Go visit the old Veloka's mechanical doll. My wand will be there. Okay, so that's what the puzzle's for. What? I wonder how I'm supposed to do this exactly. I do like a flower though. I'm gonna look for more things to observe. Wait, it's which hands? So it needs to get to this hand. Aha! I got it. So freaking smart. I wonder what the deal with the Velocus is. Like, they're just there, pacing around. For what? There you go, wizard. Here's your wand, Sir Wizard. Oh, magnificent, splendid, you did it. Really? Where are the stones? Can I borrow them? I can't lend you the stones. These stones are very, very special. What I can do is place the stones on the locks of the door, but you are the only one who can turn the key and actually open the door. Oh, I see. The king said he would show me where the door is. Ah, well, we should go and talk with him, don't you think? Wait, I suspect you can't return home looking like a tree. Oh, I almost forgot. Yes, you're right. Can you bring my human body back? Yes, I can. This is very exciting. I haven't done this in hundreds of years. Let's make you human, yes? Give me your clothing. I need to smell it. Well, here you go. Ah, this could work. How come you can base it off a smell, but you're not sure? Oh, it's so exciting. It's under the star of a thirster. Alright. And think about your body, your head, your leg, and the other leg, and your arm, both of them. Now concentrate. Excuse me. Randomly selected elements. Find the path to your true essence. Become Fran the human now! Oh my god. That's grotesque. But I'm okay. Huh. Alright. What happened? Is it done? Oh wow! Thank you so much, sir. You really are a great wizard. Yep, that's my name. A great wizard. Because of greatness. Well, thank you again, sir. It's really grand. See you soon. My darling friend, you're human again. Welcome back. Thank you, kitty. It feels great. Okay, now what? Okay, now I go to the castle. I'm gonna turn. Fuck, I forgot I can't do that while I'm in the cave. Hold on. And now make it spring. So that way if something spooky happens, I will immediately know. I wonder if I can tell the people that I was telling before, like, hey, I'm a human, by the way. I can tell them now that, hey, look at me, I'm a human. Look, I'm a human now. I wish Poop Man was still relevant, but that's okay. Oh, Mr. King. I have my body back, Mr. King. I gotta go home now. Everything's fine. Feels like heaven. What are you? Leave us run that alone. Your head playing with you again. Can't you see yourself in the mirror? I'm not you. I'm not. Let Mr. Midnight go now. We kill traitors because that's what he is, Fran, don't you see? My kitty is not a traitor. Oh, that's not their fault. No, no. Oh my god. Wake up, Fran. You're surrounded by traitors. Leave me alone. Leave my friend alone. Who the fuck are you? No. Oh my god. Go away, go away! Oh. Fran, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Crazy, sir, I'm totally crazy. The doctors were right. But you're not crazy. I'm very sorry you feel that way. You should be happy now. We found the stones and became human again. That's very good indeed. My dear, let me wipe the- She's just fucking 10, bro. Oh my god. Oh, intrusive thoughts. Man. You won't. I know that, because you love me. Yes, kitty, I do love you very much. Fran, remember what I told you. If you love, you're alive. That is the only thing that matters. You will always find the power to fight those monsters inside you. Now let's go open the gate so you can go home. Yes, let's do this. She's just a baby, bro, and they're just so freaking mean to her. Here we are. Yes, but where's the door? Oh, right, I have to make it visible. But are you sure you want to go back? I'm sure, sir. Alright, here we go. The human must leave. Open the secret door into her reality. Let the human return home. Oh wow, we're going home, kitty. Hello, wizard. Oh, it's I, the king. Good day to you. I brought the stone so this lovely creature can go home. Thank you, sir. I'm very nervous. It'll be strange to be far away from you all. Then don't leave. I can make you a place to stay. A very magical place. Wizard, she has to leave. I received a message from one of the Velokas, and she isn't ready. Oh, I see. What are you talking about? Ready for what? Come on, wizard. Place the stones. We have no time to lose. But ready for what? You know what the Velokas told you about facing your truth? Ah, yes, I think I remember. Well, should I? Yes, go ahead, wizard sir. Magic stones create the lock that only the human can break. I could probably put more oomph into that, but eh. Well, now it's time for Fran to be the key. You're the only one who can open this now. Oh, wow, alright. Let's see. I have to just tap on it. Oh, what? Oh. Okay, I see. So... Ha! So freaking smart. How come I'm the one who can do that? I smell victory! Again! You did it, Fran. You can go home now. I'm so excited! Oh, I wish I could leave something for you to remember me. We won't forget you. You're a very special creature. Oh, I almost forgot! Palantros gave me this for you. Ooh. Oh, thank you. Tell Palantros that I wish I could help him with his wounds. I gave my aid patches to a girl in the hospital, but anyway. I'll tell him, and don't worry, Palantros is better now. Uh-oh, before you go, you have to know, before you return to your reality, you'll pass through the secret woods. Woods are a kind of invisible passage between our realities, and you may encounter terrible creatures that want to eat you. But just run, they're quite slow. Thanks, man, I'm sure you keep that in mind. You're telling me this now? Don't worry, you'll do fine. I hope so. Well, Mr. Midnight, say goodbye. Let's go now. Goodbye, gentlemen. I had a great time. I like you very much. Goodbye. Oh my god, I almost knocked my phone off this freaking table. Oh my lord. Oh. Oh my god. Hold on, wait. I wasn't ready! I wasn't ready! How do I jump? How do I jump? I was trying to get my earrings, bro. Hold on. Oh my god. What the hell? What the hell? Oh my god, I fell. Okay, wait, hold on. Oh my god, bro. Release me! Release me! Hold on. Just hang on. Don't do it. No! Hold on. Like, just run. They're very slow. Well, bro, it's on my ass, so I don't know about slow. Oh my goodness gracious. Save me. It's a troll? And now we're just skipping to the— okay. Hold on. Let me get my earring. Okay, all my pills. Yippee. And my pills. I had to click. My goodness, the door opened. Wow, interesting. Wow, without a lock or anything. For once. Hold on. Put one earring in. You know, I gotta make sure my piercings don't close up. Come on, Mr. Minute, let's find out where we are. Oh, and there it goes. Oh, Fran, I hope we can find home soon. I'm starving. Mr. Midnight, look! I think we're on the other side of the bridge. Remember when we tried to cross before we fell into a thirst? Yes, I remember. Great, let's keep going, kitty. We have to be careful now. Are those my pills? Wow, but where'd they go? Fran! Fran, they're connected to string, Fran. Home. It's not your home. Pills don't move. Ugh. Fran, pills don't move. Fran. This is the most, like, juvenile trick in the freaking book, man. Yeah. Oh no! Should touch the pills. Bad, Fran. Bad. Knife. We're fine. Fran, you're already here. Well, I wasn't expecting you until 2:35. And as I see it, I'm not trapped anymore. Interesting. Anyway, let me introduce myself. I'm Itward, your faithful friend. Itward? Anyway, from somewhere. You seem familiar. Yes! We're creature of the night. We've been playing together. I helped you to get to Mr. Midnight back, you see. Really? Huh. I think I managed quite well to find Kitty on my own. Hey! Weren't you the one that made the sisters mad? No, it wasn't me making the sisters mad. They only believed it was me. You see? But that's because they never looked into themselves. What do you mean by they never looked into themselves? They blame me instead of facing the fact that their parents— oh. Well, let's stop talking about the sisters, shall we? Don't you recognize me, dear friend, the long man with the top hat? I always came by at night and told you stories when you were just a little baby. Came to you after you imagined me. But if I'm not imaginary, you see, I'm part of your reality. Did I imagine you? You look quite familiar. Yes, I can't deny it. I exist because you exist. The truth is that you were able to imagine me because I already existed. Anyway, we don't have time to talk about this right now. I'm actually here to take you home. Follow me. Take me home? I can't let you do that. I don't know you. I won't hurt you. I'm not made out of darkness. I'm your friend. Alright. You seem nice. I'll go with you, but I don't trust you yet. That's fine. Come on now. I have something to show you. Damn, he's tall. Hello. Like, maybe it's because of papyrus, but I just trust skeletons, man. Behold, it were the flying machine. What do you think? I love it. There's many buttons to push. Yes, with this gorgeous piece of machinery, I'll take you home. I'll fly as soon as I arrange the details. Besides, it's not 2:35 yet. That sounds great, but what is it about 2:35, sir? I don't understand. It's when time becomes slower. That gives us what? That gives us a chance to enter the ultra reality. Inside the ultra reality, we can travel wherever we want to go. Right now, we're standing at the endless limits of the second reality. But you're part of the third reality, you understand? Yes, I do understand. It sounds insane. But sir, should I just wait until you're done fixing the machine? Wait, of course not. You got me by getting water and fireberries, right? Alright, it's better to do something than nothing at all, I guess. Great! Here's my amazing handmade bucket for the water. I made it myself. It's a water... It's a watering can. Ah, and the fire berries. You'll realize which berries to pick up because of the fire. Alright, but sir, can I just ask, why do you need the berries in the water? Ah, well, the berries are incredibly good fuel. They last many, many hours. And the water is to get rid of the dirt. The Kamalas. Oh, the Kamalas, I see. I hope they don't come near your flying machine. We never know, but we do know they don't like water, yes? Oh, darling, I almost forgot. Your medicine, you need it. Some things are still invisible to your eyes, you see? Here. Visible to my eyes? Let's see. Well, thank you. I was trying to catch pills earlier, but the trap caught me first. Oh, yes, about that. I'm sorry, I need to get your attention somehow. It's okay, sir. I defeated the trap in like 1 second. Anyway, I'll go get the fireberries in the water. Great! I'll be repairing the machine. Where did we even get the knife originally? Is this fireberries? Delicious berries. But they're not on fire. Where's the water? Yeah, where's water at? Oh. Hey there, man. Hello. Are you those shiny insects that get stuck on trees because you're curious? We usually get stuck, yes? How do you know this? You're not one of us. I met some of your kind before. I helped them to get free of their curiosity. Oh, that's very nice of you. Curiosity can lead us to unexpected situations. Yes, I think curiosity is a good thing, but are you stuck? Not at all. We're just trying to make our hair the longest hair ever. Wow, that sounds amazing. Good luck. I have to go now. Bye. Hell, great. Well, I see the fireberries. Oh, the berries are on fire. They must be the fireberries. Berries. Okay, well, let's get them down. What do you mean, no? Get out, you're trespassing on my territory. Huh? Excuse me, I thought you were dead. How could you possibly think that? You have no manners, young lady. Oh, I'm very sorry. You're just mostly bone. You're all rotten and bloody. Me, rotten and bloody? I think you're misunderstanding the situation. Why do you say that, Mr. Moose? Mr. Moose? But I'm not a moose, I'm a beetle worm. Excuse me, a deadly worm? No, not a deadly worm, a beetle worm. I don't go around killing creatures. I just return to the soil what creatures took from it and don't need anymore. But I only see a talking moose. Where are you? Down here, creature. Can you see me? Oh, there you are. You're so tiny. Hello, my name is Fran. Hello, Fran. Can I ask, why did you touch the moose in the first place? Normally only scavengers touch dead animals. Are you one of them? Of course not. I was trying to see if I could climb on it to reach the fireberries. I see. I think it's possible. The moose is still very sturdy and solid. But the fireberries are on fire. You might hurt yourself. Yes, to see the fire, but I have to get them somehow. Oh, good luck with that. I wonder... Oh. I have to get water first. Where get water? Word's not here anymore, and that's my dead body. Gross. Word, where do I get water? Water, water, water. Where can I get water from? Where do you suggest I find water? Let's keep calm, we can't predict such things. Where's the water? Would you let me tie this bucket to your beautiful hair? Tie a bucket on our hair? Why? That sounds insane. Oh, it's not insane at all. I need water from under the cliff, but I can't reach it. I need to use your long, beautiful hair as a rope. Please help me. Alright, we'll help you. Whew. Cause I was thinking, like, I don't see water here, but there might be water literally anywhere else. I was honestly just doing some random shit to see if it works. Wait, what the fuck? That worked? The bucket's now full of water. Oh, thank you, shiny insects. I have to go now. I have to go home. Home is a place where we all wish to belong. What, does home belong somewhere? What? I'm sorry, I don't really understand the question. It was a rhetorical question. I just wanted to say that you are your own home. Welcome yourself inside. You'll find many doors to open. Oh, that sounds mysterious and beautiful. I'll try to do that some other time. Bye. Okay, now we got water. Can I put the fire berries out with the water? Okay, huzzah! Now I have all the things. Wonder if we can. I want to ask that question. Deedle worm, sir, will you come to visit me when I die? I always come to visit those whose time is left behind. Don't worry. Sounds good. We'll see each other again when I'm very old. I'm about to turn 11 years old soon, but that's not too old, so not yet. I'll see you when the circumstances are right. Alright, I got it. But they're not on fire anymore. Magnificent, these will do just fine. Thank you very much, my darling. And I have water. Here's a bucket full of water. I got help from the shiny insects. You mean the Luciferns? They're nice, yes, but only when you see them in this reality. They're very dangerous if you ever see them in the 5th reality. They can burn you. Wow, burn me? Well, I haven't gone to the 5th reality yet. I don't recommend it. What's reasonable there may be the worst thing you'll ever experience. Oh, I forgot to thank you for the water. Thank you, Fran. You've terrified this poor girl. Ah, Fran, it's 2:34. The journey's about to begin. Let's get inside the machine. Let's go, let's go, go! I talk really fast. My bad, guys. She is still just the Fran of shock and befuddlement. Come on, Mr. Midnight. Oh, I was really scared it was gonna close on him and I would have been really sad. Is this actually gonna work? Wee. Hell yeah. It's 2:36. There's a high probability of reaching the target in good condition. We'll soon be on our way to the 3rd reality. Are you excited, friend? Maybe I'd be more excited if I understood more about the realities. You'll soon understand. The answers aren't easy to recognize. What? Huh, that sounds strange to me, sir. Time proceeds as it has to in order for you to be alive. What? If it all happened now, you'd probably explode. You telling me that the answers I'm looking for will come to me when they want? Not exactly. You know what? I'd rather say, through time you must explore and experience to understand. That means the answers will come when you find them. Not when others tell you how or where to find them. Ah, I see. Well, I'm excited now. You've woke my curiosity. That's the best thing you can do for yourself. Be curious and you'll always be amazed. But now, friend, we have to get things done. Talking won't get you home. What things, sir? The machine needs some maintenance and I think you do incredible work. Here are the fire berries in the water you gathered before. You'll need them to get the fuel mix and the water pump working again. You'll find all the information you need when you enter the room to the left. But feel free to enter any room you wish. I'll be quite busy fixing the automatic driver, but if you have something to ask, I'll be here. I've never done anything like this before. That makes it more exciting. Have fun, my darling. Alright, I'll go now. See, like, you kinda got the dancing shoes on though. That's for real. Anyway, is this the room to the left? Is it your left or my left? It's the kid! It's the fake kitty. But still the kitty nonetheless. Oh, many things. Nope, not yet. Hold on. Reality view, ultra reality view. So I'm seeing into ultra reality. Huh? Okay, so AFM into something along with something into here, into there, into there. What? Oh, she don't even notice freaking centrifuge. Like, she doesn't know what these are. She doesn't know what any of this is. Okay. So this. I need this. And I need this. So this. What? Hold on. Okay. R15. Huh? Oh, I need a teal one? What? I don't think it's long enough. Cause see, there's no, there's something that's supposed to overarch. Okay. Lots of words here. R15. And 116. 166. Apply heat to this. How do I turn it on? Okay. But I don't have one last thing. Can I turn this off? Okay. I need a blue tube. What's with this little Mr. Midnight? Oh, the girls are still here. That's okay. Can I take the eyeball or no? Ah. But now I have everything. I need a green tube. Where do I get a green tube from? Hello there. Is that me? Forgot to give myself some love. Seconds and minutes and hours and days. Oh. Okay. Oh, green tube. There you are. Octopus hose. Okay, well after that, now what? I did something, it would. Water pump. Ah, and then there's this thing. But there's not a manual for this. Yes, there is. Fire here, and then I twist this, I turn this, I connect something, and then put water in there. Okay. So, I need a match. Turn this. Let's get. Nope. Okay. Can I patch it up somehow? Put water in there. How do I fix it? How do I fix it? Turn that, put water in there, I make sure all that's connected. It's still red. Is there another pipe I'm missing? Or some tape or something? Ah! Tape. Aha! You should. You deserve a hug. Fran, I finally managed to fix the automatic driver. Do you need any help? I think I managed quite well too. I did all you asked of me. Very well, Fran. Everything seems to be working perfectly. Yes, everything looks absolutely great. What should we do now, sir? Well, I wanted to ask if you're afraid of rabbits. There's a little rabbit in one of the rooms, and I'm deeply afraid of it. Which help me get rid of it? A rabbit? Guess it depends on the rabbit, sir. With all the things I've seen, I can't imagine just one kind of rabbit. Is it a chocolate rabbit or one with horns and killer eyes? Just see it for yourself. There's a pink nose and blue boots. It's just sitting there, no blinking, no movement. It's staring all the time. It does sound very scary, sir. Excuse me. Show it to me, otherwise I'll never know. Brave you are, dear. Follow me now. Okay. Oh, it's fake. There, see? It's just sitting there. Isn't that such strange behavior? From what I see, it's just a toy, sir. It doesn't move. Could you please try to make contact with it? I don't dare touch it. Alright, sir. I'll take the rabbit and show you. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's gonna smack me. See, it's just a fluffy rabbit. Nothing to be afraid of. Oh, you're right, Fran. There's nothing to be afraid of. What? Are you kidding me? My fucking cat! God, I fucking trusted you, Itward, and you betrayed me. How fucking dare you? This fucking bitch. Okay. 2 5 3 1 2 5 3. Oh, why did you scare it, word? Okay, 4 1 2 3 5. Enna? Enna Dream Barbecue? What? Huh. What's this? Battery. Can I get this wrench? I can't. That's... Okay. Yes, that's literally all it does. Okay. Blinking lights. I can't turn this. Okay, let me try using the wrench on these. Aha! Okay, battery. Aha! Hello? Are you? Oh, and they were slicing the ribbons. Okay, great. I've seen these movies. The thief always knows what to do. Okay. Massive and dangerous weapon. Oh. What? Aha. Oh. Okay. So, from down there, it was... Wait, how many are there? Five, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 26. Okay, so a lot. Okay, hold on. We go back down here, right? 4, 1, 2, 5, 3, or 3, 5? Okay. Okay, I have an idea. Uh... Okay. Oh, okay, wait, I got this. It's like how a real lock works. Ha! Can't see very well, it's quite dark. Surprise, Fran! Happy birthday! Worst surprise ever. Don't do that again. Oh, a birthday party? Whoa, I thought you wanted to kill Mr. Midnight. You lied to me. We lied in order to divert your attention in another direction. I'm very sorry I had to fool you, my friend. We wanted to surprise you, my dear friend. Come and eat cake. Alright, thank you, kitty. You really surprised me. Thank you, Mr. Edward, sir. The cake is made of all your favorite ingredients. Mr. Midnight told me which ones. It was something very special for you from all the members of the ship. From all of them? It means all of us naturally born are handmade beings. Here you go. I hope you find it educational. What is it? Open it. I'm scared. Oh, kitty. Wow, a cat doll. Oh, I love it so much. Thank you, I love it. It's beautiful. It may give your eyes a new perception, you know, like the ultra reality. Is that what happens when I take the red pill, sir? Is the ultra reality what I see? Well, it depends. Would you like an explanation? Yes, please. Look, what you've seen is a mixture of different realities, and the ultra reality is like an invisible room where everything exists at the same time. For example, at these exact coordinates of time and space, we're having a birthday party. But in the ultra reality, other things are happening all the time. Slower, faster, just invisible to the human eye. Because of time, humans can define past, present, and future. Defining things encapsulates reality. It gives humans a chance to understand their environment. You have a different perception of the environment. It's not linked in definitions. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not sure, sir. I think maybe. I feel a bit dizzy. That may be the ship going up and down. Blow out the candles, Nadia. We're about to reach our destination. A lot of candles. She's 11 now. I mean, we're about to go home? Did you hear that, Kitty? Yes, we're about to arrive. See, I don't like the way this cupcake looks. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, crap. Nadia, what's happening? Miss Mirna, are you alright? I'm alright. But if the ship doesn't break, it sounds dangerous. Fran, you have to help. I have to drive the machine again. Automatic driver was destroyed by the Kamalas. Oh, no. There's only one left alive. You have to get rid of it. Find it fast. How do I do that, sir? Water. That cleans away the dirt. Hurry up now. We have to find it. I really hope the water destroys it. Let's go. Oh my god. Okay. I gotta like be pill popping. I wonder where it is. What the? Maybe that's why he's scared of it. This is gross. Okay, I can find it, I can find it, I can find it. I wonder where it's hiding and how it's hiding. Ah! Get out of my ship. Is this not it? Okay, about to say. I just misclicked. Ah, don't run away. Where are you going? Oh crap. Oh crap. Where did it go? Where did it go? There you are. I don't have any more water. What happened to the water bucket that I had? Is it on the floor? Where's my water bucket at? Maybe I need to go back to the normal reality. What the crap? Where's my water bucket? Hello? Hello? Oh, wait, I'm stupid. Hello. I think I broke it. Okay, about to say, because I'm like, extra ain't there. Okay, I remember. Get him. Shit. Bro. What pores, bro? Are they made out of like blood or something? I think I finally got rid of it. I'm the best. I should go back to Edward. You are the best. I love you, Fran. Edward, sir, we did it. The Kamala is gone. It's gone. Yes, it's too late, dear. I can't take you home. We're going down. No, please don't tell me this. It's not fair. It's not this, bro. She's 10 years old. I will always take care of you, my dear. Aww. Going down, down, down. Where's Aunt Grace? And the ship kept going down until it crashed. Everything was destroyed. That's how crashes work. The end. Okay, no way. That's a very sad ending, Edward. Tell me another story, please. Alright, this is the story of Fran Bow and me. When she promised never to forget me, about the magic of everything. Aww. I promise it, Word, I'll never forget you. Well, now it's time to sleep. Aww. Expect me in your dreams, my friend. Aww. But does he only appear to like children that can like conceptualize him? How curious. Oh, hello, dear. Oh, I gotta click. Edward? Ow. Kitty, we're alive. We survived the crash. Oh dear. Yes, we're alive. But Edward is gone. We brought us home. We're just outside of town, Fran. I can smell it. Are you sure, Kitty? Are we already home? I thought you'd be happier about this. What is it? It's just that I wonder where Edward is. I wish I could say goodbye. Maybe you can take the medicine to see him again. Yes, Kitty, but I took all the pills already. See the— Damn! Girl, how many pills are we popping? That thing was full. Girl. Anyway, let's go home. Maybe Edward will come see me someday. Oh my goodness! This is our street, Kitty. Hayes Street. Yes, it is. Okay, nothing to click on. I guess I'll just go. And here we are. This looks much more gray than I remember. Well, I hope Aunt Grace will be happy to see me. Aunt Grace, hello? Maybe she's not at home, dear. Do you have the key to get inside? No, I don't have a key, but I know there's a hidden key here somewhere. How about this one? Well, then what do I have this key for? I took it. Ned, would you like some more adventure? Not really, no. Why do you ask, my dear? I thought maybe you'd like to climb on this plant holder. Oh, no, I'm too tired. If you do, Kitty, I'll make sure your favorite meal, please. You can't get me to do things for food. Kitty. Alright, friend, I'll climb only if we don't find the key. Oh, I'm sorry, little insects. Don't run away. Oh. The key signed Fran. Fran? That's me. I look around the back of the house, through the window, through the wall, through the window. To keep it, you don't have it? That sounds very strange. Yes, it's very strange. I only found a note I don't remember writing. Now to get inside, Kitty, you must climb up and open the door for me. Ugh. Alright then. Wish me luck. You can do it, Kitty. Be careful. I believe in you, Kitty. Please don't get hurt. I'll cry. Mr. Midnight, do you hear me? Kitty, open the door. Fran? I can't believe it. You're alive. Where were you? Dr. Deern? I'm fine. Please don't take me back to the asylum. I've been looking for you a long time. How did you escape? None of your business. It's none of your business. Leave now, please. Oh, but why are you outside the house? Well, I don't have the key, but Mr. Midnight's inside now. Climb through the second floor window, sir. Mr. Midnight? Isn't that your missing cat? Yes, but we found each other in the end. Sir, may I ask you why you're here? I came to meet Miss Grace. I have something very important to tell her. I think she's not at home, sir. Well, it may be better this way. You'll have to come with me then. No, I won't leave my kitty again. Let's wait until he opens the door. Fran, I don't believe your cat is in the house. That's impossible. I'm telling you the truth. He's inside. He'll open the door in a minute. Stop it, Fran. Dude, you can't just say that. No! Get your hands off of me! Unhand me, you troglodyte! It'd be really funny if he opens the door. Oh wow, a lot of them are... We get Volokas in the fucking Kamalas alike, just all sitting there. Sorry, Fran. I don't want to hurt you or scare you. I'm just worried about Mr. Midnight, sir. You made me leave him. Is he really alive? Of course he is, sir. Why would I lie about it? This feels so wrong. You know, friend, I was fired from the asylum because I knew too much. What? I found things I don't understand yet. I really thought you were dead. Look at these documents. Whoa. Whoa. Wait, no way. But I'm not dead, sir. This is all lies. I see that. I also found out that your medicine was switched. You were given a new variant of duotine. When I looked at it in the laboratory, the levels of... I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it. What did I say when I checked the damn thing? Oh my god. I actually don't know if I said it at the time, but I looked at it and I was like, The levels of ectoplomatin were too high. That can't be good. Ectoplomatin creates a doorway between the conscious and subconscious mind. The problem is, if the ectoplomatin is too high, the door will open too wide. And that can create great confusion in your brain. A great confusion in my brain? I am a bit confused, yes. That's because of all the new things that I can see and feel. What? He's like, what the fuck? Wanna blow this case wide open. I can see the ultra reality, sir, and also travel to other worlds. He's like, the fuck? That's not true. If I had some more medicine, I could show you. You don't need that medicine anymore. All in my head, you say, then I may be able to control it. I mean that you're imagining things, that's all. Ah! What? Who told you that? You did. Or didn't you, sir? I haven't said anything about it. Oh my goodness, and it's true. Oh, please, let's focus. But you're not listening to me, sir. We need to find out the truth. Wonder who's behind all of this. The nurses? Oswald? Who knows? I do know, sir. It's the Blake... Oh my god. Can't say shit. It's the big black monster, Remor. He took my parents and now he's hunting me. He wants me dead. Oh, I wish I stayed in a thirst with Palantros and the Great Wizard. What are you talking about? You're like, what the fuck are we talking about? Please, Fred, I'm serious. I never say goodbye to Itward or Palantros and my kitty's all alone. Palantros? Itward? Please, Fran. Palantros is the doctor of a thirster. He's a flying creature, very fluffy, sir. And Itward is my faithful friend. He brought me home with his machine. It seems you've been living inside of a fairy tale. It wasn't good all the time, sir. The twins are gone because of me. I saw myself killing Mr. Midnight, and I saw mother and father too. The twins? What twins? The girls who were attached to each other. Attached, you say? That reminds me of Clara and Mia case. 2 girls in the asylum who claimed to see a creature named Edward or something. Edward? I think you're misunderstanding, sir. It's Itward. But what happened to those girls? Dr. Oswald was fucking asshole. Nothing happened. A few months later, they died and their bodies were thrown into a well. Ah, that's what the bodies in the well are for. That's awful, sir. You can't take me back to the asylum. Don't worry, I won't. I brought you with me so you can help me. Maybe we could find something that'll lead us to those responsible for this disgrace. Thank you, Doctor. Maybe Palantros was right about you. You're not a back doctor, you're just an old man following the rules. Following the rules? Well, not tonight. Oh my lord. Does this technically count as kidnapping? Now hold on, I'm drinking water. Here we are. This is a cemetery, sir. What are we doing here? You'll see. Come on, follow me. We're gonna see my grave. Oh, poor baby. At least we still have our stuff. This is your parents' resting place, and also yours. Why did you bring me here, sir? Sorry, friend, but things are how they are. Your parents were killed. Knowing who killed them can help us make things right. What do you mean by right, sir? I mean that if we can find the guilty ones, we will have justice. Use the law to punish such behavior and prevent others from being harmed. I understand, sir. And with what did you need my help? To find clues and evidence. We need to open the... Haha. Maybe the deadly worms came already. Ooh, the what? Anyway. Yes, Dr. G, and I'll see you soon. This is so illegal. I wonder what's with this. I have a key! Motherfucker! Maybe nobody's down there. Burn the door down. I'm just trying shit, I'm not gonna lie. Where did he go? Wow, hello, stone woman. Are you sleepy? Oh my god, all that shit happened to her this year, dude. I feel awful for her, bro. Something, anything we can click on. How do I open it? Is there something in his car I can use? And in 3. By the way. Wait, what? Oh. What if I get in the car and I drive away? Oh, crowbar. Yeah, we need it to open the door. So, we just have to trust the 11-year-old with a crowbar. It's cool. Aha! Shh! You have to keep it down, Fabio! Oh, but I'm not Fabio, I'm Fran. Hello, little pinecone. What? Oh my goodness, a giant! Oh, please don't be scared. I won't harm you. Oh, I thought no giants could see us. I think I can see you because I have very big eyes, you see? Ah, I see. I'm Sebastian, by the way, the Triumphs Collector. The Triumphs Collector? That sounds very exciting. Well, right now we're trying to find some shiny leather. We need it for the mating ritual. What? Oh, this is quite interesting. Shiny leather, Yep. Last year we used old human skin, but the dealer worms wanted it back, so we're looking for something more synthetic. Well, I hope you find that leather. Sebastian, would you do me a favor? Depends on the favor, giant miss. I was thinking you could open the door for me from the inside. Now I could do that, or we could help each other instead. Bring me a piece of leather, and I'll open the door. Alright, giant miss? But where will I ever find that? Huh, alright, I'll see what I can do. Leather. Leather? Wait, can I like cut a piece of his seat cushions? Wait, no way. Wait, no way. Wait, no way. No way that works. Hopefully he doesn't catch me. There you go, Sebastian. Wow, thank you, giant miss. Our triumph, the Pinesilis will be happy. And now I'll open the door. Just a second. Ouch! Are you alright, Sebastian? Sebastian? I'm alright, miss, yes. Oh, good. Well, thank you. You opened the door. You're all welcome, giant miss. Fabio? Oh, there he goes. Oh, I have to go, miss. Good night. Hey, Fabio, wait for me. I have the leather. They run so awkward. Yeah, our friend, look, I found a pair of shovels. Oh, yay. Well, now I'll have to find something to open the coffins. Okay, I guess I'm opening coffins now. What? What? I have to zoom in. Okay, let's open mine first. That's... Oh. It's a cat, and it's my mother. And then my father. Oh my goodness. Woohoo! I'm not in the coffin, great! Anything that could bring us closer to the killer? That dead cat isn't my cat, they're lying. It can't be, sir. I did find my kid, you have to believe me. Take me home and I'll show you, please. Alright, Fran, I'll take you back home. Yay, yippee, let's get the fuck out of here. Cause they gon' get me. Oh my god, they got him. Bro, no, the ads. No, oh my god. We're seeing crazy shit. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna wait for the ads to be over. So that way no one misses whatever the fuck is going on right now. Because I didn't know it would happen until the ad started and I was like, fuck. Oh no. Oh no. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna grab a snack until the ads are over. Just hold on, just hold on. These ad breaks are bullshit. Oh. Ow. Oh, thank god. Okay, hold on. Okay. Sorry, gorillas. We got shit to do. So he grabbed his fucking face And he just... oh my god, vanished into the hands of darkness. You have no manners. I'm not afraid of you anymore. I've taken... hold on. What? Hold on. I think he's really just out here saying shit, cause what? I've taken away from you the light. The one you love, the one you respect, and the one you desire to love you. Get the fuck away from me. This fucking bitch. Oh my god, bro. You broken little girl. The House of Madness invites you inside. If you want to find those you love, in darkness you must wake up. The fuck? How about you screw off? Okay, never mind. Wake up now, friend. Wake up! Who was telling me to wake up? Fuck you. They put me back in the loony bin? I think they are. Oh no! Oh, but I'm locked up. Why? I'm great. Oh, I'm fucked. Oh, wait, no! I'm still in. Wait, Aunt Grace, wait. Aunt Grace? Is that you? My darling, you finally woke up. You're at home, my dear. Am I? Really? It's incredible. I'm so happy to see you. Please give me a hug. Soon, my darling. And where's Mr. Midnight? Your cat? Well, you know, he ran away after what he did. What? He ran away, but what did he do? Now, how the fuck did a cat do that? He's a traitor. That's not true. It can't be true. He didn't do it. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. In the end, we must have someone to blame, right? But you can't blame Mr. Midnight. He's my best friend. But it's easier to blame somebody else than taking responsibility, isn't it? I will always take responsibility for my actions, even if they're not so good. What the fuck is with her? I know, my darling, you need it. But, Grace, don't leave me. Why am I chained to the bed? Because your hands do bad things when they're untied. What are you talking about? Uncuff me now. I have to go find Mr. Midnight. Huh? What the fuck are you? I'm looking around like, who the fuck are you? Get the pain inside your mind. What? That is not her. What the hell going on? Why is she acting so strange? Why blame Mr. Midnight? Kitty couldn't have killed his parents. My parents? His claws are so tiny and soft. I hope he's okay. Excuse me, but what should I do now? Tick tock, crazy sound. It never stops. Now that I think about it, the clockmaster said that time is a layered reality. Maybe there's another version of me in this room, another time. Or I'm just imagining things. But if it's true, how can I make contact with her? Dr. Deeren said everything is in my head. I painted this one. It's Kitty and me. I don't have the key anymore. I lost the key. Make doll my daddy and I built together. And the wind took all the magical dust away. Oh? Hello. What are you doing on my bed? Are you sick? Your bed? This is my bed. And no, I'm not sick. But you're chained up. You're a dog? Wait, do I know you? I'm not a dog. And yes, I'm chained. Can you unlock it? Whoa. You're myself. You really are. You think so? Then this means I managed to enter that ultra reality. Did you meet Itward already? He's always talking about that. Yes, I met him already, but I haven't seen him since the crash. You crashed? It means you're broken. I'm not broken. Why would you say that? Think about it. The only way to cross into ultra reality is to break the eyes, to break the ears, to break physical limitations. That sounds extreme. You think I'm dead? No, not at all. They told me that to die is just a mental state. They? Who are they? All the creatures we can see. The black ones, the white ones. Do you know why we can see these things? Yes. How did I forget all these things? I do have this book. Yes, a man called Leon came to visit once and told me everything. Oh, can you tell me then why we see the things we do? What if I help you unlock the handcuffs first? Then we can talk. Good idea. I also need to find Mr. Midnight. I think he's in danger. Aunt Grace blames him for the death of our parents. Who's Mr. Midnight? What? It's our kitty. You know, our best friend. I don't have a cat. That's the difference between us. Anyway, let me see if I can unlock your chain. It so happens that I'm a key collector. I'll be right back. Oh, okay. I'm like, as you continue to stand there. These are pants. Well, then open it. I'll get in trouble. Why would you get in trouble if you open the door? Okay, I'm at the psych ward. Hi, key collection. Hope I can unlock the other Fran now. She still thinks the same way with negative. Nope. See, I was right the first time. So freaking smart. Thank you so much, Fran. You really have a lot of keys in there. Yes, don't you? Oh, Fran, before I forget, Palanche just told me that if we meet someday, I should give this to you. Here, I think it'll help you open something. Launtress, you know him too? Wow, thank you. Yes, he also told... Hold on, I mixed up their voices. Yes, he also told me that if we met, you'd be ready for what's about to come up. What? Ready for what? Tell me. Oh, no, I can't now. She's coming. Be quiet. Come on, friend. You must see the doctor now. Have I been here a long time? What the hell? No, don't go, little friend. We have stuff to talk about. That nurse is a bad nurse. She was one lying to the newspaper about me. Anyway, I must find the monster. I'm sure he took Mr. Midnight. What the hell is going on in this game, dude? Okay, so there's shit we don't remember. So maybe we're like an amnesiac? Or did we like fall into an alternate reality? Where the trauma just like suppressed everything? What the heck is going on? Okay. Okay. That kitty looks super decomposed compared to the, like, my parents. Balloons. My school case. Hello, don't look at me like that. Lots of candy. Seashell. Who's this? Alice? Alice from school. Oh my god, she knows Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Dude. She told me a story about a wonderful land she visits sometimes. Okay. So, Little Misfortune, Fran Bow, and Alice in Wonderland take place in the same universe-ish. Okay, great. Sure. Oh my god, I clicked out of the game. Oops. I love this picture of Mr. Midnight. He looks so confused. Okay, so did I go into an alternate reality, Fran? I'm so fucking confused, bro. We hopping out the window. What in the hell? Excuse me, is somebody down there? Yes, I'm somebody. Hello, have you seen a black cat? No, I haven't seen a cat, but I do see a black thing eating from me. Eating from you? I think it's a Kamala. Are you alright? No, not really. I don't feel very well. I feel sad. Well, I may be able to help you. I got rid of a Kamala once, all by myself. Really? That sounds promising. I'd love to be happy again. I'll see what I can do. Don't worry. Do I have water? Oh, they're water balloons. They're water balloons. Okay. Okay, so... all the screaming, I press it by the ears first. First twice to the left and once to the right. So, 1, 2, 1. Rub its only eye 2 times. Left ear and scream. Press its eye again. Okay, so... how do I pull it? Oh my gosh, it's opened! Oh, what? Designed by Cogwind! Cogwind made this! Wake up clock, bottle with water soap bar, piano key. Okay, a lot going on here. Lots going on. What happened? What? Oh, it became a door. Okay, so I have an empty case. Need a lot more things. Oh. Pick that up at the corner. Ah. A key. A clue, a clue. My mother drew this flower for me. One of my friends once and told her I drew it myself. Then I told her the truth and she said it was okay. I can't take that with me. This is Tesla and he likes to play with energy. I don't think there's anything else in this room for me. But the poor tree being eaten alive. Aww. She is literally just a baby, and everyone is so mean to her all the time. Key. Oh, now I'm in the dollhouse. Because that's my eye. This looks like it words. But where is he then? Inside the little house. To call somebody. Hello. I don't think it's appropriate, miss. I'm sorry, but I need this key. There are many doors that I wish to unlock. Tell your friend it'd be nice to open his mouth. He won't. He never does. Besides, his teeth are reinforced. It'd be hard to get that key without his permission. Reinforced teeth? I see. And who are you? I am Fran. Nice to meet you, Fran. I'm Roberta. Welcome to... oh. Yep. Welcome to Mabuka's den. Mabuka? Who's Mabuka? I don't know who Mabuka is. You don't... leave now. Just leave. But Roberta, sir, I haven't been here before. Don't judge me for not knowing. Tell me who Mabuka is instead, so I know. Okay, okay. Mabuka is the mother of darkness. The darkest darkness. The obscurity. The end of light. Mabuka is the mother of all creatures from the fifth reality. What? Mine the fifth reality? I thought... Remor was king here. Ah, Remor, the terrible black. The son of darkness. Nobody likes him too much. You should go now. I've said enough. Alright, I'll be back later anyway. Later anyway. I must get your friend's key. What's wrong with you? Poor guy. This is weird. Hello there. Intruder, infiltrator, why would you enter without pretending yourself? I'm Okula, the eye from beyond. Behold my beauty. Oh, I'm sorry. What a big eye you are. You must see very well. I see everything, nothing less. Everything? Can you see my cat? Your cat? How is it possible that you own a cat? Are you royal? A queen? A princess? No, I don't own him, but we have a relationship. We're friends. Friends? How lovely. But yes, I did see a cat earlier today. It was crying for help from inside a cage. The bearer of the cage entered Mabuka's underground. He's still down there, inside the cage. Can you describe the cat you see? Big yellow eyes, pink nose. Its fur is very dark, black as the deepest night. It's him. That's my friend Mr. Midnight. I have to go find him. But Mabuka is asleep. Waking her up can end it in disgrace. I'm not afraid of her. Well, feel free to take anything you need from my home. You are brave, and I respect bravery very much. Thank you, Okula. I'm Fran, by the way. I'll see you around. What's this? I don't know what that did. What's this? Oh, I can hop in the painting. Sure. You know, this is just like that book I read, the Book of Elsewhere. Insert button. Okay, well, I'll plug that back in for now. I wonder what this did. Like, what does that do? Does that let me do different things in this place? Nope. Oh, I can go here. Hello. I'm not the mother. I'll take another bath after this one because I stink. Well, who told you that you stink? The creeps that walk on my skin, they're getting sick. They vomit every time they eat from my skin because I stink. I don't smell anything. What is the smell we're talking about? I stink like the most unpleasant stench. I believe you, but I can't smell it. Sorry, I have to go now. Bye. All of a sudden, that would be the end. I don't like thinking about my heartbeat. I just want the soap. Soap? Are you having trouble with your hygiene? Yes, terrible problems with hygiene. I smell like my flesh is all rotten inside. That sounds delicious. I don't think that'll be a problem. Maybe for you. Just have the soap for a little while. Alright, then take it. It's all yours. Yippee, soap. Be careful with the hijackers. They love children that smell like soap. They eat their baby bodies and keep the heads. Their beautiful baby faces. That sounds terrible. I'll be careful. Thank you for the soap. See you later. I'll fill with water. Bath boy. Okay, guess not. And then wonder what this is for. 911. And I got that key already, cause I'm smart. Sure, do creepy things like you feel pain? Pain is the opposite of welfare, that's all. Maybe welfare to me is to bleed until my body dries up. And pain can be the crystalline laughter of a child, so yes, I feel pain. I see. I need a button. Where do I get a button? Aww. I'm looking for a button. Oh hey, we have the same shoes as Itward here. I wonder if I can look in this mirror. I need a button? I'm just wondering where I'm supposed to get water from. Still have this green crayon. And I still have half of my snack left. Okay, hold on. Talked to Okula, picked up those things. Okay, I can examine the dresses. Let me do that. And I cut the button off. Aha, ha, ha, ha. Okay, so I can go get the thing and then get the key. This way? Yeah, this way. I just wonder what this does. Okay, how does that help me? Okay. Okay, well, at least that's 4 things. According to this, I can use the pliers on this guy. Oh my god. I thought we were just— I didn't know we were gonna take his freaking teeth out. Oh my god. How could you? I took all my baby teeth. Insane, isn't it? Fran! Fran, you can't just take people's teeth. It's not— oh. Okay. Oh, hello, kitty. Wow, what a big cat. Oh, thank you, little kitty. Okay, now I need water. Oh, hey, we are. Yep, she's on fire. She's just a girl, she's on fire. You don't need to talk, just let me take the key. I choose not to talk to strangers, not listening is also part of the deal. How disappointing. I have a question. Are you stuck to this tree? I'm firmly attached to it. Why do you ask? I'm just curious. See you later. I have a brush. Look, I found a magical hair comb. Isn't it great? I don't know. My hair comb? What is that? Well, let's make your hair very pretty and smooth. Would you like to try it? I don't know. Is it dangerous? It can be very pleasant if you do it smoothly. Alright, let's try it. Just promise you won't burn me, okay? I'd only burn if I was in danger. In danger. Be careful. I'd only burn if I was in danger. Be gentle and nothing bad will happen. Okay, I'll be gentle. Aww. It worked. What's happening to me? I've never experienced anything like this before. But how? You're a Luciferan. All Luciferans I've met do this all the time. Really? Well, thank you very much. It feels incredible. I feel like I need to fly away. How get he? Okay. Let me go back to Bath Guy and see if I can, like... What can I put in that, do you think? Hey, cuz... Hold on, let me just, like, double check. Oh, there's a faucet. I'm freaking stupid. Oh my gosh. Now it's full of water. I fill the water balloons with water. Okay, now what do I use these for? Oh look, this lights up now. Need a working bulb? I forget, like, I need to look at, like, everything. Everything. We looked at Itward's coat. I looked at the phone. Oh! Water for this guy. Water balloons to go to distance. How'd you miss? Did it. Goodbye, Kamala. Wow, I don't feel the sadness anymore. Thank you. Don't worry about it. I'm happy you feel better. I do feel better. Let me give you something in return. A stick. Here, a piece of me. You can plant it if you like. Thank you, sir. I have to go now. I must find my cat. Well, I hope you find it. See you around. Okay, and then I use the stick on the thing. Do I put everything in here to make the clock? I think I remember this. Aha! Oh, and here's her den. Need a working bulb. Did I see a light bulb anywhere? Oh, you know what? Oh my god, I tabbed out of the game again. Hold on. Over here. Look at this tree. The tree! The tree! The tree has lights on it now! Oh my goodness. Oh, what about this? What about this? Ouch! Oh, that's what this is for. I see. Okay. So now that I have all of these things, I think we put them all in the cat. And the cat will make it for us. I remember this. No, on the hatch. Wahoo! Heck yes! My goodness, this is amazing. The ECOG clock, it's finally finished. Okay. Time to wake her up. Ring, ring, ring. Ring, ring, ring. Ah! Beware of Mabuka. The awakened darkness rises from the unknown. Oh, I'm sorry to wake you, Mother Mabuka, but I need a favor. Oh my god, girl. Can somebody tell me who this creature is? Quite insolent for such a tiny body. Excuse me, but I can answer that for myself. I'm Fran Bow, human girl, 11 years old. I'm very brave, so you know. A human in Mabuka's den? That's amusing. Who brought you here? That would be Remor. I think he's your son, isn't he? My son managed to enter your head already? You're like cutting my head open? I don't think so. You drink or eat some sort of reddish potion or beans? Beans? My pills look like red beans, so yes, I took the whole bottle. I cannot use violence against you. The power has been unleashed. I hope you find beneath the ground the truth that you seek. Thank you, but what power has been unleashed? Can you tell me? The power inside you, don't you know? You were selected by the 5 realms of essential existence to be the keeper of the key. The 5 realms of essential existence were created parallel with time. What? She's 11! She's 11 and you're like, yeah, okay, you're the keeper of the realms now, by the way. Like, what? Who told you that? The great Velokas from Primitive told us everything a long time ago. A keeper will be hunted by the Son of Darkness after feeding from the red seed. You're too young, I must say. Too young to be a keeper, indeed to be keeper of the key. There's something about you. Something obscure happened to you. I think Remor killed my parents, Mother Mabuka. Can you imagine how that feels? I am all of those feelings, Fran Bow. I am everything sinister, all the darkness you can imagine. I feed from tears and sorrow, from desperation and fear. And you don't care if Remor killed my parents? I thought you were nice. I'm curious to know the reason, if that makes you feel better. Now I understand. It's the reason itself, the truth you're seeking. Go on, Keeper of the Key. Be brave now. I'll open my heart for you. Girl, what? It was so evil and intimidating. And then it was just, this is a fucking reception office. I know you from somewhere. You took something from me, didn't you? You little thief. Where's my knitting needle, eh? You stab all your little friends with it. What? A knitting needle? Are you the dead nurse I saw back in the Oswald Asylum? Do I look dead to you, eh? You little beast. Take a number, would you? And wait your turn in the waiting room. But Miss Nurse, I don't need medical attention. I just want to find my kitty. Take a number and wait. I won't repeat myself. I'm number 7. Hey kid, it's my turn to talk to the nurse now, alright? Don't leave us alone and wait, I'll tear you apart and eat you. Ew, you eat children? Do you know when children actually immature? Hey, leave the patient alone now. The doctor will determine the severity of your illness, don't you worry. How do I open it? Oh. Ugh. Wonder how long I have to wait now. Hours? Maybe even days. Ha! I'm waiting for a week now. How long has everyone else been waiting? I've been waiting for like a month. I'm number 2, so it must be my turn very soon. I've been waiting for 3.5 weeks. Totally hopeless. Excuse me, everyone. Is there a way to make things go faster? Yeah, go a doctor yourself. That'd be faster. If we're doing that, you'll have to help us all. Why don't you become a doctor yourself then? I can't, because I feel very sick. I can't. My other eye has been blinded. I have this broken horn, you see. Can't be a doctor. I have to be a patient. Neither can I. I've lost the ability to frighten myself in front of the mirror. I'm not sick at all. Please let me go before you, alright? I can't. I don't know what illness I have. That's why I'm here. How do you not know? you feel any pain anywhere? That's a very hard question. Make it softer. Softer what? How can you make a question softer? That's very strange. Hey, have you tried pulling your eyes off? It helps sometimes. Enough! It's impossible to talk sense with any of you. Of course you can't make sense of us. You're not the one who sees it all. You've only known us for a few minutes. That's very little time to understand it all. That's true. But it would be nice to use some common sense. Why? What does common sense do that uncommon sense doesn't? Well, it helps to better understand each other. We understand each other very well with our uncommon sense anyway. Yes, we actually do. We respect the differences. Who's the one who sees it all then? You mean Mabuka? No, Mabuka knows everything. It's not the same as seeing everything. Now I want to wait because talking won't make the waiting go faster. Huh. Alright, thanks for nothing. What do I do? Can I leave? I fucking can't. Okay. So, what am I supposed to do? Supposed to trade tickets with somebody? Might tune out myself, so no. Huh? Okay. This is so freaking confusing. Apparently I'm supposed to go talk to the eyeball. So let's just do that and let's just see how that goes and hopefully I can figure it out from there. Excuse me, I need your help. Of course you do. What can I do for you? Oh, okay, I can ask him. Oh. He's in the waiting room waiting. Let me see. Oh, I see him from what I see. But from what I see, it's not really an illness. It's just a headache caused by low levels of agony. Wow, but is it possible to help him somehow? I need his ticket. Yes! Crying all the tears you can cry until you fill this bottle will do it. But don't forget, the tears must be caused by real sorrow. That won't be a problem. But a very problematic point in my life. That everything was going to be better when Kitty and I got home. Now everything is so confusing. Aunt Grace is totally crazy. Talking to her was horrible. I really trusted in her. I don't know what to do now. Mabuka said I was selected for something. But she fell asleep again and won't answer my questions. I need my kitty. Between my tongues are the biggest comfort in my life. I just want to find him so we can go back to Thursday and be happy. Lovely pain. So profound. Okay. Alright, there you go. This bottle is now full of your tears. Give it to the critter that has your ticket. Thank you. Oh no, time doesn't wait for anybody. Thank you. We're going now. Goodbye. Okay, well that was simple. Here, drink this. You'll feel much better. Oh, trying to poison me. How lovely. Let's see. It tastes like the most profound and darkest elixir I've ever tasted. Give me more, give me more. No, leave me alone. You promised to give me the ticket if I helped you. Alright, there you go. And thank you. Your tears taste absolutely delicious. How'd you know it were mine? It was mine. What the fuck? Okay, well now it's my turn. Ha-fucking-za. I use it on the door? It is my turn. Page number 2? Oh, I can't just save you. You have an appointment? I think I'm gonna wait. Many lose their minds instead. Lucky, how do I get an appointment then? Aw, just call me. Here's my card telephone number. Are you insane? Call us. Okay, now I gotta go make a call. This is just about how roundabout actual healthcare is. Hello, you just told me to call make an appointment? It's Fran Bow. I'm available now. No. No. Yes, I do have a pair of eyes. Really? Okay. I'll see you in a minute then. Great. Thank you. Bye. Yes, bye. Gotta make the phone noises for immersion. Can I stop stuttering every 5 freaking seconds? Oh my lord. And can I brain? There we go. Okay, now I have an appointment. Yes, Fran Bow is my name, and I have an appointment is now. Let me check the archives. Ah, yes, here you are. The doctor will see you in a minute. Just go through the door to your right. Alright, thank you. Oh my god. I'm sorry, did I scare you? You look quite pallid. Oh, yes, what a nightmare. You look like a healthy human. Oh, thank you, I guess. If you don't mind, I have an appointment. Well, I don't mind, actually, because it's none of my business. You know, real as hell. Oh my fucking god, why are you here? You haven't chosen to end your life yet. Isn't the pain you feel not enough? You're Remor, aren't you? I've had the chance to introduce myself properly. Sadly, I cannot be seen in the third reality for long periods of time. I am Remor, the terrible blank, the Prince of Darkness. I know who you are. Don't try to act like nothing happened. Did you kill my parents? Where's my cat? What did you do to Dr. Deern? I immensely enjoyed seeing your suffering dripping from your eyes. I feed from it. You are the manifestation of my desires. I can use you for whatever I want. You are under my power. That's not true. Not anymore. I won't allow you to trick me anymore. Tell me, why did you kill my parents? Why? You're assuming it was I who did such a terrible thing? I saw you that night outside my window. It must be you who did it. You trust your eyes too much. Haven't you learned that human receptors are weak? Your body is fragile, easy to corrupt. Oh, did I do it? Get the fuck away from me. Get a job! Stay away from her! No, it can't be. Stop it. I didn't do it. I didn't. It wasn't me. Stop it, please. Aww. But even the doctor didn't believe it was me. The dull little critter must suffer and die before becoming a star. But it wasn't her. I feel like it's like one of those things where like everybody would know. I didn't kill my parents. I didn't. That monster wants to trick me. I know it. Everybody's crazy around here. I have to find Kitty and leave. Yes, girl. Stay true to yourself. Oh my god. Dr. Deern! Are you alright? Sir? Sir, please wake up. Please, Dr. Deern, wake up. Are you alive? Sir? Ah, what do I do? Syringe. Hello? Maybe this will wake him up. Oh my god. This is Fran? Ah! Damn, what was that? Don't worry, Dr. Deern, it's me, Fran. Ah! What? I can see very well. Fran Bow, sir, from the Oswald Asylum. We're at the cemetery, remember? Fran, what happened? Why am I tied to a chair? What have you done? Oh, I'm trying to help you, sir. Big monster brought you here. We must go. Come on, Fran. Monsters. I don't feel like playing games. Alright, it wasn't a monster at all. Just let me help you. What is she doing here? I thought you chained her up. Ah, I did. I told you she was a hard one to tame. You want me to get rid of her? Get rid of me? Aunt Grace, why are you talking like that? Who's this old man? Is that guy? How lovely. You sound just like your mother when she was young. What the fuck? Who the fuck are you? My mother? You know her? Who are you? I'm Dr. Oswald. Hold on, I need to be like older. I'm Dr. Oswald Harrison. I know everything about you, Fran. Oswald? From the Oswald Asylum? No shit, but you're 11. I can't expect you to put those together yet. Yes, Fran, the same old man. Well, what do you know about my mother and my aunt? Well, many years ago, I was studying the fucking twins, okay? Complexity of twin siblings. Lucy and Grace were part of my study. Both helped me find the key to success. Key? Did you know that my mother and father were murdered? Yes, of course. Your mom did a great job. Fuck you, man! Can we kill this guy? His power of manipulation is extraordinary. What I don't understand is how you can be so calm about it. It was you holding that knife after all. I'm not calm, sir. I knew it was Remor all the time, but why is he hunting me? Remor is the manifestation of your weakness. A blind and powerful manifestation of your fears. But why would the monster kill my parents? Because your parents were interfering with my work. But I actually did you a favor. You are suffering, and pain is connected to growth and strength, Fran. She doesn't need to be strong. She's 11. Oh my god. Barely 11 years old, was just 10 minutes ago. Oswald, please, let's just do what we need to do. Oh, Grace, please don't be mad at me. We're family. Let us go. My kitty and I can find a place to go without bothering you. Please, just let us go. Yes, you're right, Fran. I'm sorry for being so hard on you. Come on, let's go now. She gonna shoot me. She gonna kill me. I'm gonna motherfucking die. Dr. Deeren, are you alright? Ah, he fell back asleep. She gonna hold him off a ledge or something. I don't trust this. Oh my god, she's literally holding him off a ledge. Fran, my dear, listen to me. You must know Dr. Oswald only wants the best for you. When Lucia was pregnant with you, he knew you'd be a very special girl. He told us to take good care of you, but your mother betrayed us. She wanted to hide you from us. She thought we wanted to kill you, but that's not true. Dr. Oswald really wants to give you the best, but for that, you must allow him to try a little experiment on you. And then everything will be fine? Of course. But there's still one thing we must take care of. This little traitor must go. He's like... You motherfucker! I fucking hate you. No! No, kitty. Come on, friend, stop weeping. The cat is dead now. He was my friend. You killed my best friend. You also helped kill my parents, didn't you? Didn't you? How can you live with yourself? I hate you. Oh, I hate you. What the fuck? Oh my god. Oh my god, kill her. Kill her. Do it. Stop it. Fran, help. Help. Yeah, bitch. I don't care. What's he gonna do? Oh! I was joking about the shooting her part. Oh. Oh. You little monster. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. She's totally insane. Bring her to me. Oh. What the fuck is the experience? Get the fuck away from her. Don't fucking touch her. Oh my god. Strike the brain right away. Fran, are you alright? What have you done to her? She tried to kill me. You were right about Fran, Dr. Jen. She was sick. But she's bleeding. Let me take care of her. No, you won't. She's mine now. I've been waiting for this moment for many years, looking for the right child, the right brain. Now that I have her, nothing can stop me. Okay, I keep hearing this, like, whistle noise. Edward! Oh my god, I'm fighting off the haters! Fuck yeah, Edward! Oh, Fran, everything will be alright. He's like, what the fuck? Hold on, wait. Oh, I'm not freaking out no more. Let's fucking go! Let's fucking go! Edward Clutch! Who are you? I'm Edward, the one many children talk about. But You're not human. Oh, Pelantras! Gorska! Edward, I found him! Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Stay away from the girl. Leave her alone. Kitty! Little Fran must be cured. You think you can use the same body? Yeah, she's not completely gone yet. Here I go. Oh, Mother Mabuka, you took the child's innocence. Fran is now dead and alive. Wake up in darkness, Fran, and you'll be able to walk towards the light. The pink stuff! Fuck yeah! Wait, oh, like, do I need to click or something? I love them, bro. They're the goats, man. Oh, let me hide my cursor behind myself. My PNG tuber. Oh, okay. Oh, we're alive. Ah, it happened. We're conscious. My heart hurts. Mr. Midnight, we're alive, my kitty. Missed you so much. Please tell me something. Fran, we must go now. Go? Alright. Dr. Deern? Look, this is Edward and Pelantras. He's standing there like, what the fuck? He's sitting there like, am I tripping fucking balls? What the fuck? I told you about them, remember? I told you they were real, see? Do you believe me now? Oh my god. He can't hear you. Thanks under the power of Mabuka now. We really must leave. Now. Like, 5 minutes ago. Let's get the fuck out of here. You can come with us, please. He's been really nice to me. He really wanted to protect me and help me. We can't bring him with us, I'm sorry. But what we can do is make him believe that all of this was a dream. He'll wake up and think none of this really happened. But he won't remember you, Fran. I see. Well, that's okay, I guess. As long as he's safe. That's very kind. You'll finally see— oh shit, I'm like knocking stuff on my desk. That's very kind. You're finally seeing beyond your own desires. You are becoming one with everything. Your parents will be very proud of you. Oh, you really think so? Oh, thank you, Pelantras. Now let's get the fuck out of here. Oh, we gotta go. Now let's send Dr. Deern home. Marcel? His first name is Marcel? Marcel? Marcel Deern, I don't know. I'm not saying all that. What the hell? Goodbye, Dr. Deern. Let's go now, friend. There's so much you must see and learn. That sounds like fun. Let's go, kitty. And this is how she shows up in the next Little Misfortune game. I got to the end. Yippee! Yippee! I still don't know many things. But one thing I do know. That between guilt and fear, I choose happiness. Aww. And there we go! I love this little flying machine. It looks way longer here. Pelantras, how are you letting him outfly you? Come on, man. Pick up the pace. Fuck yeah! There's the meds. Get that shit out of here, sorry. Ah! Let's go! Let's go! What is banging? This is cool. Maybe I shouldn't have snoozed the ads. These are just the credits. Damn. I had a lot of people support the game. Damn. Damn. Aww. That's awesome. And so freaking sad. Like, oh my god. And if it weren't for, like, Little Misfortune, I would be really worried that most of this was in Fran's head. But then the end kind of makes it like a... Because otherwise, how the fuck did she survive that? Anyway. Damn, that was crazy. Okay. We might call it early today. I mean, early as in, like, I've been live for 3.5 hours. But early-ish. For me personally. Oh my god. That's crazy, but like in a good way. Holy cow. Let's see who live right now. I forgot to full screen this shit to see everybody. Yeah, I think we're gonna call it. That's be it for tonight. Thank y'all so much for showing up. I appreciate y'all. And we'll probably be back tomorrow with either RE7 or more Stardew. We'll see.